Stash Cairo here. Impromptu. No idea what I'm doing as always. Pardon me while I punch this button here. What do you mean leave? Oh, I hate. Okay. Where was I? Oh yeah. Stash Cairo here. Impromptu. When you're a YouTuber, you tend to watch other YouTubers. And one of the ones that I actually watch, there. One of the ones that I tend to watch is a guy named Brian Philly in the Philippines. Brian, if you're watching, terrific. Probably not. So, okay, Philly, P-H-I, yeah, Philly in the Philippines. He just did a live stream, which was interrupted because internet in the Philippines is garbage. I don't use internet. I'm using my Keitai, which is the Japanese name for cell phone. Now, I have a 5G cell phone and I'm using my data, so it's super quick. Philippines, forget about that. This is what I'm talking about, get it to Dodge. Now, Brian was having this long lamentation when he was eating lunch at the Central Park Tower in Angeles City, Philippines, which is where I've stayed. And his live stream kept on getting interrupted by crap internet. Now, this hotel is one of the best ones in Angeles City, which is kind of like how can you put it? Soy cowboy in Bangkok, that kind of thing. More on that later. And the internet kept on cutting. He finally had to give up on the live stream. And I was actually watching because, as Lord Spade and I have mentioned on our shows, as I have talked about earlier on, I'm going crazy. I can't take this anymore. I got to get out of Dodge. The weather happens to be really good lately. It's 97 degrees, what's that, about 35, 6 degrees Celsius. It's sunny, which is the kind of weather that I like. It's making Lord Spade a little bit crazy. We have a mutual friend, Jules, who's from Sandusky, Ohio, who hates hot weather and loves the winter. He's the only black guy I know who hates hot weather. I mean, I don't want to be stereotyped, but this guy, known him forever, loves the snow. I'm from Toronto, and it's a great city, but I absolutely loathe the snow. Now, I'm going to imagine that with no, how can I put it, announcement on this, I'll be lucky if 2 people are watching this stream. I'm fine with that. I'm basically doing this to vent. And the venting is, I got to get out of Dodge. So wherever you are, if there's anybody watching, are you going stir crazy? Now my business, you might have heard Lord Spade mention this, my business is, I'm self-employed and I do sales, training, consulting. What I'll do is, if you're a bank, a consultancy, let's say you have a client, a Japanese prefecture, a Totori Ken, as an example, and you want to issue some bonds, US dollar, Japanese yen bonds, and you want to do some kind of a sales trip, maybe you're going to London, New York, wherever, and you're trying to raise funds and your city manager, your prefectural manager is going. I'll take a look at your deck and I'll take a look at your flow. I got a background in TV and in sales, IBM, etc. And I'll just look at it and say, A, does it work in terms of its English content? But more importantly, does it work in terms of its sales content? And I've been doing this for years. In fact, tomorrow is the 15th anniversary of my coming to Japan. 15 years ago tomorrow. Wow. So until this COVID, Corona, whatever you want to call it, nonsense happened, I was doing great. Things are fine. But the whole bond raising, money, it's over, baby. It's over. So I have been doing very, very little work since one of the consultancies I work for at the end of April. I've been just going stir crazy here. Now, I just turned 59 years old. My idea was that when I hit 60, I've got money. I'm okay. I'm fine living on my own. I'm fine paying the bills. I got cash. I don't want to brag or be rich, but I'm fine. Things are peachy. Rent's paid, bills paid. There's no trouble with me at all. Got cash in the bank. So when I turned 60, I was planning to retire. Where? I don't know. Phuket, Pattaya, Bangkok, maybe the Philippines. And that was my plan. And I was, going to give it one more year, one more college try, and then bugger off, as the British would say, to someplace nice in Southeast Asia. And one of the places I was planning on going is Angeles City. In fact, if you see this is a now closed go-go bar in Angeles City. Now the irony is, I'm not a go-go bar guy. I'm not a brothel guy. If you watch the stealing the security guard drunk story that we posted a week or two ago, You might have heard me mention that I'm not a strip club guy. I'm not, never have been. Angeles City is really about one thing. It's about Fields Avenue, which is the go-go row. Angeles is not a gracious city. There's no beach. There's not much to do. And I'm not a go-go bar guy. There is just something about the milieu, the atmosphere in that particular area that I find appealing. And I like having my lunch, dinner, wherever at Kokomo's, which is on Fields Avenue in the middle of the go-go area, the walking street. And I just like having fruit juice and relaxing, taking a trike up to the SM Mall. I love that name, the SM Mall. How apropos for Angeles City. Watching one of the IMAX movies, maybe coming down, lounging by the pool, reading. Oh, it's magic. And I can do that for a few months at a time. I'm a permanent resident of Japan, which is great. So I can spend a few months in the Philippines or say Thailand, or ostensibly I could spend a few months in wherever and come back and forth. So if it's summer here, I love the summer here, even though it's crazy hot and it's extremely humid. So I like that. And then you go back to say the Philippines or to Thailand or wherever where it's extremely hot and humid, which for some reason or another I like. But that's gone, man. That's gone. My business is pretty much dead. The irony is that my good friend Lord Spade is busier than ever. He's got something happening next week. I'm not sure what it is, but he's going to be off the clock for about a month. Ask him, I don't know, some kind of business. He also is he got a new contract for Displaced Media, his company. They're shooting some travel videos from what I understand in September, so power to him there. And he does soundtracks and such, busy in the record producing racket. So he's busy, and ironically, I'm not so busy at all, which is a drag, but hey, life goes on. But I can't get out of Dodge. I was planning to do an early retirement. Okay, to hell with it. I don't need this last year. I got money in the bank. I can take a trip to Cebu, Angeles, Phuket, Pattaya, wherever, and kick back and, spend some of my, I don't want to say declining years. That sounds horrible. Spend some of my, whatever, my fat, useless white guy years in relative relaxation, and even perhaps continue with our channel. I won't be Tokyo Stash and Spade. He'll be Tokyo Spade. I'll be more Southeast Asia Stash, regardless. As I said, I'm a permanent resident of Japan. Is there anybody out there, and I can't imagine without any sort of announcement that there's even anybody watching, but in the future there'll be a couple of people watching, probably 10, maybe 20. Is there anybody out there in a similar boat? And I don't mean like you're locked down. The whole world is locked down. Tokyo is actually not bad. Subways, the JR trains are running, business is happening, restaurants pretty much open, bars too, cinemas. It's slower, but it's not that bad. The traffic's pretty heavy. You go back 3 months, the traffic was about a third what it normally is. It's basically back to what it is. But the country's locked down. They're not letting anybody in or out. Well, actually, they're letting citizens in. They're not letting permanent residents who have been abroad come back. Don't get me going on that racist nonsense. But basically the borders are shut. Philippines, the borders are shut. Thailand, the borders are shut. So I was checking out Philly in the Philippines. Brian, if you're watching, love your channel. And I was trying to glean some information about when Angeles and such is going to be opened up. Looks like never. 2021, same thing with Bangkok, with Thailand, with all those places. Now, since I have no business here, I'm going mad. I've mentioned this on several podcasts, mentioned it with Lord Spade. I'm going mad. Every day is the same. Business is essentially this much. And thank God I got cash in the bank, I'm okay. But it's this same day nonsense, day after day after day, that seemingly never ends. So I got up this morning about 7:30 this morning, went to bed last night about 12:30, and golly, is it Saturday? Okay. I know it's Saturday because from time to time you see me point over there. And I've mentioned that right over there is my balcony. And there's a publishing company across the street called Hayakawa Bunko, Japan's largest publisher of science fiction books. True. And they're always staring in my window, glancing at the tall fat guy Jin who lives across the street. And evidently they've watched our show. They now know that the tall fat guy Jin who lives across the street is half of Tokyo Stash and Spade. Okay. Do you care? No, I care. Because right now, it's hard to see Hayakawa Bunko. Why? There's scaffolding. outside my balcony. Scaffolding. The Oyasan, the landlord, has announced that they are resurfacing the front of our building, and they're going to be there for about a year. So right there, where my balcony is, there's scaffolding going up from the bottom right up to the 13th floor, which is the top. Yes, Japan, you have 13th floors, 13th floor, room 13, etc. There's no bad luck here in the Asia with the number 13. But right up to the 13th floor is scaffolding up the entire side of the building. So I'm lying by my bed. I might have been reading a book. I might have been watching a video in my VR helmet. I don't know. All I know is I hear a sound, and it's this Chinese dude, not Japanese. Chinese, Asian construction worker. They're wearing the traditional construction worker pants, speaking, I'm assuming it's Mandarin. And why? There's a severe labor shortage here in Japan when it comes to construction workers. So this dude was speaking to his buddy, I guess it was Mandarin in some Chinese language, and he's going on and on and on about something or another. Probably, who's the guilo? I think that's the Chinese term for gaijin. Lying on his fart sack reading. So right there, I got all these construction workers swarming outside my building, walking up and down the scaffolding, looking right into my bed right over here. And I got to tell you, dudes, it's a little bit much. It's a little bit much. I've had enough. And it's loud. They've got the jackhammers going. They've got the banging going. They got the sheer pain in the butt going. And I'm going to be going very soon if this crap continues, because I can't live like this. I think I mentioned before that I used to live in Nihonbashi for years, 10, 11 years. Loved Nihonbashi. My landlord decided to renew the building, so I had to leave. So I'm here in Kanda, which is nice. I'm 2 minutes from the station. It's a nice modern mansion. Mansion is Japanese for condo. And it's okay, but I don't love this place. I don't love this area. It's convenient. It's okay. The rent's fine. But if they're going to be right there with the crazed Chinese construction workers staring in while I'm whatever, I can't take it anymore. So I could eat the rent if I could go off to, I don't know, Angeles City, Cebu, wherever. I could do that, but I can't get out of Dodge. I can't get out of Japan, and I'm starting to go completely, absolutely mental. So if anybody out there, send us an email, leave a comment, do something. You got any idea when something's opening up? It would be a real kindness. A real kindness. Now, I'm staring at Philly in the Philippines, and what happens? Video cuts off. Just as he's giving the lowdown, the extra lowdown on when he thinks that the Philippines is going to open up, which is basically never, sometime in next year. I wouldn't have minded taking a trip to Hong Kong, but Hong Kong's gone. I mean that literally. The Hong Kong that I've always loved no longer exists. I have a tailor there, so for my business suits and shirts and such, I use a tailor to get all that stuff order made because I'm a big guy. On Nathan Road, right in downtown Hong Kong. And if you've ever been to Hong Kong, you know that if you take the metro, I think it's Lao Wu, I can't remember the subway station, but it's the border crossing subway station. So what you do is, when you get off at that station, you can walk across the border into Shenzhen, China. And so you'll go through Hong Kong exit customs, then you'll go into Chinese entry customs. And if you have your cell phone, what ends up happening is you might well be 30 feet in China, but you're still on a Hong Kong cell tower. So your internet works, everything's peachy, everything's great. You walk another 2-3 feet, it switches to a Shenzhen, to a Chinese cell phone tower, and there goes everything. You're now on the Great Wall firewall, and everything's censored. You can't get shit. You have no life over there. And even though Shenzhen and Hong Kong, they're essentially the Canton. They're the same people, the same language, the same everything. And Shenzhen is a modern enough city, brand new. There was nothing there until the 80s. It's soulless. The attitude's different, the look is different, the language is the same, the people are the same, but the internet's different. It's not a nice place. You walk back another 5-6 feet, boom, you get back onto the Hong Kong cell phone tower. Okay, you got freedom. Into Shenzhen, back into Hong Kong. So if you want to do some cheap shopping and such, you'd walk into Shenzhen. But for quality of life and any kind of fun, you'd stay in Hong Kong. Go on. That Hong Kong literally has been gone for a couple months, ever since they put in that security law. It's never going to change. Hong Kong is gone. So I used to love flying down to Hong Kong. We mentioned in our podcast last week about Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and Lord Spade was talking about how he's not a great actor, but I was saying, hey man, he might not be the world's best actor, but he knows his brand. He's an interesting guy to watch. I can remember being in the Admiralty area of Hong Kong a couple of years back, and I saw Jumanji, which I'd seen back when I was married, with the Robin Williams version, not liking it very much. And I saw it in IMAX 3D with the wired seats in Admiralty, Hong Kong, and loving the movie. Thought it was really, really well done. And Dwayne Johnson was a good example of that. And one of the things that you see in Hong Kong, or saw in Hong Kong, was a lot of Chinese movies and other movies that had Chinese and English subtitles in them. And you can see lots of really cool stuff that never gets exported to the West. That Detective D, that Chinese language film 3D, that was done in Shanghai, Detective D and the Rise of the Dragon, Young Detective D, great interesting flicks like Captain Marvel and the an American comic book superhero movies, but they don't really get exported. Wow, fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Gone. So Hong Kong's gone. I'm not a gambler. I've been to Macau, and Macau is a tiny fraction of the size of Hong Kong, but I have to wonder if Macau is gone too. And China, I got a multi-year, multi-entry visa for China. I used to have a girlfriend live there. And I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't know what's going to happen. They've got some Canadian arrested on trumped up charges. They're going to execute them because of the woman in Vancouver that the Americans had us arrest, and we're trying to extradite her down to the United States. It's bad juju, as the Kenyans would say. So even if I want to go to Hong Kong, it's gone forever. That Hong Kong, you can't go home again. Hong Kong doesn't exist. Macau, it's good for a day trip. Nothing really interesting there. It's too small, and I'm not a gambler. The Philippines, Cebu, Angeles City. Manila's a disaster. Manila is just not the place you want to go. Angeles is a terrible place in terms of its infrastructure, and there's no beach. I just like it. I don't know why. And I'm really not a go-go bar guy, a Bravo guy. I have no problem with that, but it's not my shtick. And Cebu's got great beaches, but they're locked down. So here I am doing this ridiculous live stream in the middle of the afternoon. What time is it? It's 11:53 a.m. here in stately Stash Manor in glorious Chiyoda Ward, Tokyo. We were actually supposed to do another podcast, which we were going to shoot today. Nah, studio's all booked up. Tried Akihabara, tried Funabashi, all booked up. Tried Ginza, Nakano, all booked up. So we're hoping to do a podcast, shoot it maybe tomorrow. And then whenever Lord Spade goes off at his sojourn, his mystery trip that I really don't know too much about, I'll find out later what's going on, because we got to get some stuff in the can. We got to get more material out there. So from you, help me out. What do you know about the situation in the Philippines? What do you know about the situation in Thailand? What do you know about the situation, period? Are you going nuts too? Is it getting you crazy? This every single day is the same. Wow. And also, you might have noticed the last time I talked about getting my beard trimmed. I haven't found the new barber. I haven't gone down to the Black Barber in Roppongi. So I called my buddy Jules and said, Jules, when are you and your son going down to the Black Barber? I don't know. Why? Because I gotta get my hair cut. What's it to me? You're a grown man. So sometime soon, I gotta get this mop trimmed, and I can't take it to the guys up the street anymore. I can't have this garbage beard trim. I can't do it anymore. I just can't. I need someone who knows how to cut a beard, who knows how to trim some hair, and doesn't look at me like, oh, look who's come in. It's that guy Jin from up the street. Mendok side, that's that means problems. Any case. What else do I want to talk about before I go? I've talked about Philly and the Philippines. Shout out to Brian. I've talked about the Chinese laborers outside my door. Oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad. Like Saturday, Sunday, there's nobody here. There's just the scaffolding. Come Monday, I'm back to the chain gang. Boom, 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 boom. And buddy outside the door, hey, how you doing? Yeah, good to see you. Don't mind me, just give it a tug. Christ. That's what my life has come to. And how about you? The majority of our admittedly tiny audience is not in Japan. It's primarily in the United States and in, believe it or not, Brazil. Because we've done a lot of, Lord Spade has a great love of Brazilian music, Elis Regina, and, well, Tom Jobin and others. And as a consequence of that, our most heavily viewed reaction videos, if you want to call them that, are Brazilian songs, Como Nos Pés and Água de Março, and songs like that, Girl from Ipanema. We really have to get back into the reaction racket. But those videos are very labor intense. We've got to get the translations done. We've got to get the subtitles off to our good friend May. And one more thing before I go. You know, you gotta love YouTube. You gotta love that algorithm, the way they suggest things. The other day, I saw several videos of this Japanese female comedian. Her name is Yumi Nagashima. You should check her out. She's interesting. She's from Tokyo, and about 14 or so years ago, right around the time I moved to Japan, she moved to Vancouver. So she does these rather edgy jokes with this very Japanese girlish delivery. And she's good, man. She's good. I'd like to post one of her videos on our channel with some Japanese subtitles so the folks here in Japan can get her humor. But if you're looking, tell me what you think. Yumi Nagashima. And again, she's from Tokyo, but now she's a Japanese comic based in Vancouver. She tours all around the world. So Yumi, if you're watching, shout out to you too. I love your humor. And I've also been watching a lot of Bill Burr. There's a funny guy. Him and his wife do that, Nee, I think her name is, do that podcast plus some of his shows. I love that as well. So on that note, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Let us know what you want. I'll reach over to this magic button, which hopefully shuts this ridiculous thing off. But I got to get out of Dodge. If I have to sit here day after day after day after day, the same thing, nothing changing, I swear I'm actually going to crawl through the scaffolding off my balcony and jump. I'm not serious, but you know what I mean, because I just can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. And if there's anybody out there who's watching, who, it's not just the fact that you're locked in, but you're basically broke because you've lost your job, man, I feel for you. I'm lucky I got some money in the bank, but I can't even imagine what it must be like. You want to work, you're ready to work, you're getting completely screwed over through no fault of really anybody's, or you want to blame a politician, go right ahead, I don't particularly care. Regardless, you're stuck in the house, you've got no job. I read this horrible article that was published by, it's in the New York Post. It was originally a blog post from James Archuleta, I don't remember his name, but he's a New Yorker, and he wrote this blog post, later published in the Post, about New York will never recover from this. And I had thought along this lines, because I love New York City, it's just a great, great place. And he goes chapter and verse on why this particular situation, the scenario, is unique. And New York City will never recover from this. I really hope he's wrong, because I don't want to see anybody knocked down. I don't want to see one of the great cities of the world knocked down. And I happen to love New York City. I remember the first time I was there was August '79, the first time I ever saw breakdancing. I was in Times Square, and I saw these kids on a piece of cardboard doing some breakdancing and some, I guess you would, not even hip hop, the term didn't even exist back then. And I remember coming back to Toronto, I was in the service at the time, and saying to my mom, there's this thing called breakdancing in the States and in New York, and I promise you, it's before I got into radio, I promise you, it is going to be the next big thing. And sure enough, I mean, we can imagine the amount of influence that's had. And when I think about it, I go back to '79. Here I am, 2020, and I'm in Tokyo, and my partner is an American hip hop producer. You can't make this stuff up. You really can't make this stuff up. Synchronicity or what have you. How life gets affected by this, the butterfly effect. The smallest change 41 years ago, and it amps up, and the next thing you know, it's your entire life. So if you're sitting there, back wherever, the States, Brazil, Canada, whomever, wherever you live, and you're affected by this, my sympathies, man, because I don't have a good solution. I'm thank God I got some bucks in the bank, but if you're struggling to pay bills, man, that's got to be rough. And hopefully you get your job back. New York City does recover. It's bad. I can moan all I want about having to get out of Dodge, but it's not even obviously anyone dying from this coronavirus is horrible. That's a horrible thing. But the numbers, when you put them in perspective, and there's under 1,200 deaths here in Japan. There's 126 million people. Now, I'm not minimizing this, but the economic destruction is unbelievable. If you're not just not working, but it's like you're never going to get it back. If you're a waiter or a waitress, and that's one of the number one jobs anywhere, especially in North America, because of the emptying out of these office towers, and they're never going to fill up the way they were. I don't see it. The rise of, when I was at IBM 25 years ago, we tried to do the telework, as they called it back then, but we didn't have the bandwidth. You couldn't do video meetings and such. Nowadays, yeah, you can do all that. You can work remotely without any real problems. So even if offices go 20, 30, 40% capacity, they go back there. All these restaurants and bars that hover around office buildings anywhere in the world who are dependent upon their lunch and evening trade, what's going to happen to them? What if you're a waiter or a waitress in a bar like that? I'm feeling kind of grim about the whole situation. So I wish you all the best. And I can tell you, Tokyo Stash and Spade, my good friend Lord Spade, we're on your side. It's just a miserable situation. It's not you alone. Anyway, thank you all for watching. As always, more content coming up. Really appreciate this. Say hi sometime. Let me push this magic button and see if it works, or if I'm just going to be walking around the apartment in my underwear. Hey, look at Stash. He's semi-naked. Johnny.